And hello again, everybody. I think I have to start with a slide which I usually use when I start to talk about SOA, because as this term is hyped, a lot of people understand very different things with it. So I think it's true what Stefan Tilkoff, a friend here in Germany, told me that the longer I am involved in SOA, the more confused I am about its definition. For some people, it's the concept of business-driven interfaces. For some people, bring contract in the focus of the word contracts between service providers and service consumers. For other people, business process modeling and business process management is a key feature, so that they even say we have a business process modeling driven development. For some others, it's a question of how systems interact and how to manage how systems interact. For example, an interesting question is usually, do we allow or do we need some central data model or not? For example, and for others, it's the management of enterprise architecture, etc. You can read it all here. So I want to explain a little bit my context and my understanding of SOA, which is, of course, driven by the past experience, the experience I had in the past. So let me go to the next slide. So let me start with my context. And the context is mainly driven by my most important contractor over the past years, which is a mobile phone company, an international mobile phone company. So what we have there is we have different backends, we have different front-end channels. So for example, in this case, we might have a CRM system to care with customer data, we have a billing system to care with bills, of course, and we have a logistics system, for example, to send new mobile phones or headsets around. And on the other hand, we have different channels where we sell all this data. One might be a thin client, a web portal, where there's some where the customer can use some self-service. And we might also have some call centers where the customer can call in, and our internal employees help the customer to do some things. And finally, here the third example is you have a mobile phone or some other special device to disable some business processes. That's more or less independent from the domains, that you have different backends now these days to deal with your business, and that you have multiple front ends to deal with your customers, with your business customers, with private customers, with poor customers, with rich customers. However, the difference is from a historical grown company. And in the middle, you might have in these days try to manage your processes, where that might be started from the front end. For example, in the mobile phone company world, people might have moved houses, or might want to prolongate a contract. And the interesting thing is they might start this from one front end channel, but so oops, okay, here it is. So they might, for example, call in and say, I want to sign a contract with a mobile phone, and then this contract or this process, this wish of the customer gets processed. We call this an order, and we capture that order, which is the wish of the customer to do something, and then at the back end we have to do a couple of things. So a typical model is we try to fulfill this wish of the customer by adding a new contract to the CRM system, by sending a new bill around, and by shipping a mobile phone. And why this happens, this can take a couple of days until the mobile phone arrives. The customer might log in again using a different channel, and we have to find the running process again, etc., etc. So what we find here is it gets more and more complicated and more complex how to deal with the wish of the customer. So now the problem is, what you have seen is just an abstraction of how we work internally. However, this is not the way, or the only way we deal with business processes. We might, for example, also have business processes where different and other companies and other systems are involved. For example, by selling a new mobile phone contract, we might sell an insurance for the mobile phone, and we might have a bundle with a special offer for wired telephone lines. In the States, it would be, for example, with AT&T or so. So again, we might have business processes distributed over a lot of different backends. And this is the important part here. This is the important thing where I will bring in SOA now. So, for example, if a customer calls in now and says, we moved houses or we have changed the bank account, this has to get processed locally in different backends. This has to get processed externally in different backends, because also in the other systems, this data, for example, the address or the bank data, is stored. So I'm talking here about running business processes over distributed systems. And one key element for me where SOA comes into play is that these systems have different owners, either because they have different companies or they have different business units, or also internal of a big company, of course, different departments, different business units serve as their own company, having their own schedules, their own interests, etc. And you need some way to deal with these things. You need some way to realize IT solutions that cover all this distribution. These slides were just an abstraction. Reality looks a little bit different. For example, here you see a little bit the example of how it might look like in reality. And you might see that in Germany, for example, we have a landscape of hundreds of applications. We are bundled inside the company with other countries like the States, like Austria, like UK, etc. And we have business processes where we are connected with other vendors, with other logistic companies like UPS, FedEx, etc. And again, we might have the same problem. We might have the problem that the customer calls in, for example, and asks, where's my phone? So he got a new contract, we promised to send him a phone, and it didn't arrive yet. So they call in and try to find out how to deal with it. Now, what do we have to do to deal with this request? We have to go through all the different systems to answer this question. So we might have to go through our systems. For example, we have to find and identify the customer. We have to find out that the business process is running because of the new contract, so that he gets a new mobile phone. We might have to check a phone status with the vendor, which would be an external call. We might find out the details of the shipping data, maybe a package number or something like that. And with a package number, we go to UPS or FedEx or so and find out which status the parcel has. This is a typical business process we tried to realize in the past. And before we realized it,